Hello, planet Earth. Welcome to my YouTube channel. We're at IDK, my BFF Jill 730.
My BFF Jill 730.
I'm Preston L. Young, wishing you warm salutations and congratulations. As always, you've made your way to the Buffyngton Post.
You are invited.
Today I'll be taking a break from the Buffyverse to talk about The Leftovers, Season 3, Episode 5. It's a Matt world. And without further ado, let's get into it. Here we go.
Do you want me to get naked and start the revolution?
The conquering lion shall break every chain. The conquering lion shall break every chain. Give him the victory again and again and again and again.
So Sunday was not a great day for me. It was the third anniversary of my father's death, and I just I didn't really deal with the leftover Sunday night. I couldn't deal with the leftover Sunday night, and so I went back a couple days later and I made copious notes. And I will say that Matt is one of my favorite characters. I've always loved Matt episodes. I've always loved Matt Jameson. But in my notes, 3 times I wrote, I hate Matt. Like, the thing about it is, I love devout characters. I love characters who have a real faith, and I love... like I've said before, like, I don't have that. I don't have a faith that I can grab onto and use as a justification or as a backbone for anything. And I admire those who do. And Matt, for me, for the first 2 seasons, I saw his crazy and I saw his obsession, but at the end of the day, I felt like it meant something and it mattered to him in such a way that I did admire his faith, that I did admire his fervor for truth and for what his truth was. However, this season I have come to not like Matt, because the thing about faith is you put yourself into it and you put your all into it. And for Matt, he's literally putting every bit of himself into his faith in Kevin, which is connected to his faith in God. And yet, he looks at other people's faiths with disdain. He doesn't take them seriously. And when it comes to Laurie, he almost is kind of misogynistic. He won't include her. He doesn't think that her voice matters because she doesn't have this faith. And with this lion cult, this Frasier cult, he sees that they do have this faith, but he chalks it up to them just wanting to get naked and have sex. When this, whether it is that they just want to get naked and have sex, whatever it is, but they do claim that it matters to them, it means something to them, and for Matt to be completely dismissive of anyone else's claim to truth or claim to faith, it bothers me, and it makes Matt look not only like a hypocrite, but it makes him look very petty, and it just raises all these question marks around his own faith. But at the start of the episode, we get what I kind of connected in my head with the GR. We had this French submarine, and the dude gets naked and sets off, a nuclear warhead, and I thought immediately of that moment from Orange County.
Do you want me to get naked and start the revolution?
I couldn't get it out of my head. I thought it was too hilarious. But we have in this episode Matt talking about how his story is true, about how his faith is legitimate and no one else is able to sit at the table because, of course, like, he must be right because he's a pastor. He went through years of theological study, and of course, he's ordained, and his opinion means something. Whereas when it comes to this Frasier cult, he again is immediately dismissive of them. He doesn't take their faith and their kind of celebration of life and their understanding of reality seriously. And that's a problem. You can't just hold everyone else's faith and their ideals and their ideas to to a lower standard than your own, because no matter what you believe, there's always going to be someone else who believes something different, or a variation on that. However small or great that difference is, there's going to be one. Like, no two experiences are exactly the same. No two faiths are exactly the same. But because Matt feels like that Kevin's mysticism and his prophetic nature, or his kind of divine messianic nature, are so connected to his idea of Judeo-Christianity, he uses that as an excuse. He connects Kevin to his ideas of what reality truly is and what faith truly is, and he won't allow for anyone else to breach that space. He won't allow for anyone else's truth to have merit, because it's a Matt world. A few episodes ago, we saw that Matt was, of course, having these nosebleeds again, and we find out in this episode that Matt, it seems that his cancer has returned. He says that he is dying, and that really does color Matt's experience. It really does color his acceptance and denial of faith and of this David Burton character. Like, why is it that God lets things happen like this? When we see him approach David Burton, he will not accept that he is God, but then when he's got God tied up, he can accept him as God. And that goes to the Frasier situation. The thing about what this episode is saying in kind of a big way that they never actually express is that, like, Matt has put his faith in a box. He has made it so that his faith is real because he can control it and it's tangible. And the outlying problem here is Kevin, that Kevin cannot be tamed. He cannot be kind of pinned down. He's this missing element in Australia that has to be obtained. Whereas Matt's faith is locked up in this book, in the book that he's writing, and it's very there. It has four walls around it. Matt's faith doesn't have any room for interference, and what he does is he does this. Like, he doesn't believe David Burton is God, but then he talks to David Burton as though he really is God, only once he has him, like, bound and at his mercy. God, for Matt in this episode, we see that he uses God to justify his own actions. And the thing about it is, we have this lion sex cult that worships, Frasier and his offspring. And what do they do with the lion? They keep it caged up. They say, this lion is our God, and we know that it's our God because we can control it. And that's not what God is supposed to be about. That's not what faith is supposed to be about. You can't tie your God in a corner. You can't cage your God. If you believe that it truly is God, you have to let it roam free, which is what's really beautiful about the end of the episode, when we have this, what did I call her in my notes? This hot lioness chick. That's what I called her. She and her cohorts set this lion free, because you can't worship something and keep it in a cage. You can't worship something and tie it to what your reality is. A lion is supposed to be a lion. A god is supposed to be a god. And the interesting thing here is that we have Matt who loves God, and we have the lion, which, you can go back to the Chronicles of Narnia, and lion being Aslan, being a metaphor for God. And you have Rastafari, who believe that Jah kind of can be represented as a lion. Like, the lion does have these religious elements in its symbology, and you have to let your God have free dominion over you, rather than you holding your God hostage to what you think it should be. And I just find in this episode, the really beautiful thing is we get these exchanges between Laurie and Matt, between John and Matt, between Michael and Matt. And at the end of the day, it is Matt and Laurie who come together and see one another and and see the value in what the other has to say. And I think the interesting thing is that in this episode, Matt is so kind of gung-ho about not letting Laurie in because, according to him, like, her kind of cut and dry, very sterile, scientific thinking about things is not conducive to what's going on with Kevin. However, at the end, he really does see what she has to bring to the table, and I'm really excited for next week's Laurie episode. I love Laurie. But he really does see that she has a point, a valid point, and her experience is something that is, you know, contributing to this reality. And when Matt says, I'm dying, he gives it to God. Like, he gives it to God. And right after this, they release this lion, and it kills David Burton. Who's God? Who is God? What is God? Who is really in control? David Burton could be God for all we know, but at the end of the day, he's a man, and, you know, survival of the fittest. I loved what this episode had to say about faith, and how faith is personal. Like I said, I don't have a particular faith, but my father, like, he was very much into cardinals. He was very into cardinals, and he loved them, and he collected these, and these were his cardinal figurines, and right after his death, my sister and I, we started seeing cardinals everywhere. Had they been there the whole time? Possibly. Probably. But the fact of the matter is, whenever we see them, we associate them with the presence of our Father. That's something that we understand to be true. Is it true? Is my father, like, flying down to check on me or just say hello, like I'm here with you every time a cardinal flies by? I don't know, but it doesn't matter because I find solace in that. I find hope in that. Like, I have meaning in that, and it's not hurting anyone else. And that's what Matt really has to come to grips with. Like, nobody else's faith is hurting you. Now, this lion cult, they do, like, tie him up and attempt to kind of, like, steal his seed or whatever, but at the end of the day, they didn't hurt him. They couldn't hurt him. He broke free of his bounds, or his binds, and no one tied him back up. It's no one else's faith is hurting you until it's hurting you. And if you are butthurt or offended by someone else's understanding or interpretation of reality, that's on you. That means that your relationship with your God is not where it needs to be. And that's what Matt has to come to grips with. He was mad at God. He is mad at God. And he gets to talk to David Burton as though he were the God that he is upset with. He gets to put a face to God. And David Burton realizes whether or not he is lying, whether or not he is blasphemous, there is merit in an incarnation of something, of being able to point your finger at something or someone and speak to them. And he gives Matt that. Matt doesn't want for him to be God, but at the end of the day, he is willing to suspend his disbelief and accept this person as God because it beats the alternative. It beats not being able to really see and experience God. And the snap, it's kind of a, you know, it's a snap in the face. You will take meaning and you will take your perception of reality in whichever way you're willing to go. But to deny someone else their interpretation and their little chunk of the universe is wrong. And at the end of the day, and at the end of this episode, Matt is at a place where he's not going to deify Kevin. He's not going to give Kevin any more or less importance than he just has. Kevin, whether he is some messianic figure or not, what matters is that Kevin is giving somebody meaning and that he's giving somebody purpose. And maybe Matt isn't that person anymore that is gaining that kind of faith through Kevin. But that's okay, because at the end of the day, what Matt needs to do is come to grips with himself. And that's what we have here. This idea that God would say, I made this happen just because I could. It takes faith. it takes real trust. And like I said, I don't necessarily have that faith in some kind of outside force that I can name. But there's something there, and there's something for everyone, and there's nothing for many. But you can't just go around being self-righteous and hypocritical and telling everybody else that what they believe is null and void, because they could turn around and say that to you, and you don't have to believe it, but you also don't have to believe what anybody else believes, because that's on them. And so Planet Earth, I really enjoyed It's a Matt world, because The Leftovers is always talking about what it is that you glean from your experience, what purpose you define things to have, what meaning you ascribe to the events around you. I want to say it was What the Flick, but it was somebody. I want to say it was What the Flick and Alonso Duralde who said, this show is really good at showing how these world-changing events, people try and make all about themselves, and that's okay, and it's beautiful, and it's lovely to explore, and we've only got like 3 more episodes of The Leftovers, and they are going out on such a good note, you guys. This episode was so profound. You can't keep your God in a box and expect it to deliver for you. You have to really put it out there. You have to have faith, no matter how ill-advised or ill-conceived it may be. Your faith is yours, and it'll carry you somewhere if you'll just let it. And other people's faith will carry them where they need to be if you'll let them have it. And so that's pretty much all for today, you guys. I'm sure there's so many more things. Oh, like the $20,000, like he pays Arturo $20,000 to get to Australia, just like Nora. I love the parallels between Matt and Nora that we're seeing this season. We saw in... crap. I keep forgetting the name of this episode. Don't Be Ridiculous, where Nora was very much taking on Matt's identity by putting up the picture of this man and saying he's not this thing that you are allowing him to be. And so the parallels between Matt and Nora are really beautiful. I'm really excited to see where this all goes and how it all unfolds, or how it won't unfold, because, you know, it's a journey. It's not about the punchline, it's about getting there. And I want to get there, and I don't want to get there at the same time because I don't want it to be over, but that's The Leftovers for you. So I'm Preston L. Young. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and as always, question. Please let me know what you thought of this episode in the comment section down below. You can come right back here to the Buffyngton Post anytime for Buffy the Vampire Slayer reviews, Angel reviews, Buffyverse discussions on the other Slayers, and more. I've got viewer feedback for the April Buffyverse books coming up this weekend before our May issues next week. Excited. That's pretty much it. Have yourself a great day today, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
The conquering lion shall break every chain. The conquering lion shall break every chain. Give him victory again and again and again and again and again and again. Give us some victory, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, conquering lion. You know the drums roll. She'll break every chain, every chain, every chain. The conquering lion, yeah, shall break every chain. Give us some victory. We need some victory. We need some victory again and again and again and again. Give us some victory. Oh, oh, oh.
My BFF Joe 730.